I think in the pattern of our marriage, in terms of why would I not show grace to you? I think because I didn't feel like I was getting any grace from you. You were on my case about things that I did wrong. So I'm like, why am I going to let you off the hook?
And for me, lack of grace is always a product of not trusting God enough. It really comes down to that for me. The truth of the matter was I wasn't trusting God enough, and I was trying to control a situation that I had no business trying to control.
And it got us into that pattern where I was kind of going, well, if I haven't had that same level of grace, I'm not going to extend it back. So I didn't realize that I was holding back some of that grace for you because of that, because I feel like this isn't fair.
So whenever I'm in a position where I'm not extending you the kind of grace that I need to, for whatever reason, I need to go back and reevaluate that and say, okay, God, where am I not trusting you completely?
In all of the good times and even the trials, through tears and through laughter, yeah, I know that I'll smile when I think of you. Smile for the things you do. Smile, God gave me you. You are a reason I smile. Yeah.
This is Behind Our Smiles.
Pursuing connection.
And finding joy.
Even in the struggle. So life has looked really different for us lately, Joe. A lot of things are changing in your life. Our family looks different. My schedule looks different. In the past couple of months, your schedule has looked a lot different as well.
Yeah, we going through some renovations at work, and so working from home more. And
I don't know when you're home and when you're gone.
I don't know when I'm home or gone. Yes,
you're like, Tara, I wish I could give you my schedule, but I never quite know what it is ahead of time because there's constant calls coming in and checking on things and keeping track of everybody.
I have a calendar, and the calendar, I tend to look at it the night before, and then it populates itself. It's so interesting. But there are always need to be on site. There's needs to go get things. So it's been a really good learning experience.
Stretching.
The stretching,
experience.
yes.
I think anytime you say the word renovations, or you say like we're rearranging or we're adding or any kind of like project like that, everyone's a little bit too on edge because, again, those timelines are never really in stone.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, for sure on Friday. It's like, nope, on Monday. And you have to learn to just go with it and be flexible. Isn't that your word right now?
Yeah.
Be flexible.
Every single timeline I've given to the team, there's an asterisk at the bottom
Subject
that says
to change.
subject to change. And we have an incredible project manager, and it was her who actually originally put that on the first document. And
So maybe that should be our motto for our life, right? Just subject to change. Yes. Anything at any time might. And just learning to be flexible. And I'm seeing you do that, but I know it's hard for you to say. Sometimes I have to just offer some more grace here, and I needed more grace here because you're managing a lot and keeping everything in the air at appropriate speeds.
Yeah, juggling is fun.
I think you are.
At the last staff meeting, I just said to the team, I said, hey, I hope I'm not letting anything fall through the cracks, but if you are needing something from me and I have not gotten to it, please talk to me because I'm doing my best. But it is funny. And I am actually enjoying this season because you're watching things happen right in front of you and you're seeing a project come together. And for the longest time, I saw it on paper. And again, we have an incredible team who's all a part of this, so it doesn't rest on my shoulders by any stretch. But I did speak into the process by which the final design, what that's going to look like. And so there's always a part of you that gets a little nervous, like, did I mess this up on the renovation side? But I mean, as far as design, but the team, the construction team we're working with, everyone has been fantastic. The support team from leadership down to our project manager, all those guys, man, it's just been really, really good. But you're right, there's a lot of moving pieces.
It can stretch your relationships a bit. I feel like, and I feel like that's in our marriage too. Like the end goal is worth it. You have the plans, you know what you're going for. You say, okay, this is what's going to look like when we're all done. And it's something to look forward to. But if you don't offer grace in the making of it, then you don't even enjoy the process. There's so much going on. So that's kind of what's going on with us right now. We're trying to figure out a new normal for now until things are back to normal. Yeah. Whatever that means, asterisk, subject to change.
Subject to change, yes. And one of our absolute favorite things about the podcast is when you share what makes you smile about your husband or wife, and we always appreciate that. Today, Felicia is sharing about her husband, Logan, and this is what makes her smile. She said, the way he treats me and our daughter, no matter what has been said or yelled, He always embraces with so much love and forgiveness. Logan, what an awesome thing to have said about you. Thanks, Felicia, for sharing that. And you can share what makes you smile. Simply email us, Tara, T-A-R-A, at behindoursmiles.com.
Yeah, certain notes stand out than others. And for me, I like the fact that it's like things get said and sometimes things get yelled. And that's reality, right?
Yeah.
And I think to have that picture of a husband who's coming and going, again, it's that picture, I think, for me of grace, of give me a hug. We're gonna still love each other. We're gonna move past this. We're gonna figure it out. And I think it's such a beautiful picture of offering grace, even when things are said and yelled that you wish you didn't.
Yeah. Well, I've often said this before, but if you've been married longer than 15 minutes, you know that there is a need of grace.
Maybe we'll find out that their house is in a renovation.
Right,
They're like,
yes.
listen, this is just getting to be too much.
Yes.
Like, I'm kind of hanging in there.
That's awesome.
But I think there are so many times, like you mentioned, with just like renovations and times of change and times of stuff going on, that I think this is something you've said more than me, Joe, but you're like, Tara, you need to cut me some slack. And I think we both have felt that way before, but feeling like what you're pulling and what you're asking me to do is like, it's not quite realistic, or I'm probably going to make some mistakes or forget, like you mentioned with your team member. I may forget what you asked me to do because I'm holding a lot. So like, cut me some slack. I want to take care of you. I want to figure this out. But if I forget one time, can you just give that little bit of wiggle room to not be perfect? But it's hard to do when you live with someone.
Yeah, and it's hard to do when you have an expectation, right? Or you see a pattern, or you see a response in a certain way, and you see that continue to happen, then it can be challenging to give grace.
So the story of grace in our marriage, and we recently were on a wonderful friend of mine named Jennifer Sakata, and she interviewed us on her podcast called Living the Grace Life. And she just talks about grace extensively. So this is like her corner of the world, is understanding how grace looks like in a relationship with God and with others, and just living a life that's full of grace. So that really, we talked in it, we shared on her podcast a little bit of our story through the lens of grace. And we're like, yeah, like we've had, this has been a very grace, not full journey.
I would say full, yeah.
Like having to lean into grace
Yeah.
on our marriage story and kind of looking back, okay, how easy was it for us to show grace? And if we go back to the beginning, we both were like, not so easy.
Well, I'm glad that you didn't just stop there and wait for me to respond, that you kept going.
I wouldn't say we've been graceful the whole time, though. I feel like that we've grown in grace.
Yes, I think
that?
absolutely. And I also, as I look back over the marriage, we were learning how to live in grace in real time. So we were trying to execute it, trying to figure it out, failing miserably while we were growing in that grace. Yeah. And I know that in those early days, especially, I don't know, maybe quite a few years in.
We don't put numbers on it. We just say early years, and
we can say early years now.
We'll make it mean whatever we want it to mean.
Even though I probably struggled with it yesterday, right? Struggled with it yesterday.
In our early years.
But okay, let's just say everything beyond yesterday. I wasn't as quick to respond with grace. And part of that is when you walk through trauma, you learn certain behaviors and certain responses, and you pick up on cues, and you read into those cues. And I had to say, wait a minute. And it took me a long time, but to say Tara's response or the cues I'm reading here are very different, even though they may look similar to the cues that I read before. And so I wouldn't necessarily give you benefit of the doubt early on.
Yeah,
as much as I needed to.
Like at that word, we've talked about this through different words that we find that help explain things. But this idea that I really like, oh yeah, I didn't feel like I had the grace. Like if I forgot to do something that you'd asked me to do, I didn't feel like I had a pass. It was like, shoot, he really is going to be mad at this, and it's going to upset him, and we won't just quote unquote like whatever. It's gonna be like, well, now this is a big pain, right? You didn't do the thing I asked you to do, or again, we back to like this idea of the curling iron. There's been stages in my life I've used a curling iron, and there's stages in my life I have not used a curling iron. So this will kind of narrow down what years we're talking about, where in the morning I just do a couple little freshen ups to my curly hair, because some of my strands get kind of flat. And occasionally I forget to unplug it. And you, being the fire safety general, the chief commissioner in your head, you're like, leaving a curling iron on, not a good idea. Can burn the house down.
And see, in the early days, there weren't auto offs, so they would just stay on. Plus,
some better than others. Now you have helped me, because I do understand not to leave irons and curling irons and stoves, and we've talked about this so many times. But not feeling like, not saying it's okay if I leave it on and saying, honey, it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's like, hey, understand you forgot. Next time, would you please try to turn it off? Like, that's how you are now with grace. So if like, honey, I left the curling iron on. He's like, hey, honey, that's not a good idea. It's really important that we don't leave hot things on while we're gone. But I still love you. Next time, please do better. It's okay. You're not in my bad graces anymore. And it's like, okay, that's where I think that was not your response in the beginning. It was like, this is a problem, and I need you to know it's a problem. And I felt extremely ungraciously received.
Mm-hmm. And I felt it was my responsibility to remind you all the bad things that could happen
yes.
if you didn't. And obviously that didn't work, right? That approach didn't work because the iron continued to be left on. And I think what I ended up doing is starting to go behind you and kind of just make sure. But over time, I think God began, as we say God, he begins to show us things that we couldn't see I couldn't get there on my own. But God began to show me, hey, you have a bunch of things over here that could burn the house down too. Not literally like as in
you don't have many things like that. You have some mistakes you make, but not burning the house down.
We could do some damage to our marriage. We could do some damage to
not
things.
Our physical house.
And so that's exactly what I was saying though, is God's like, hey,
this is just as concerning.
This may have a bathroom fire, but this over here,
it's a marriage fire. Yeah,
you really are doing damage over here, and you need to really focus on that. And I began to make that adjustment, and as I began to make that adjustment, I began to realize, wait a minute, I need a lot of grace. I need a lot more grace than keeping the curling iron on. So as I began to realize and appreciate your grace, it actually led me to be more graceful, if that makes sense.
Well, we talked a little bit about this idea that grace does kind of like it's a cycle, right? And as you give more of it, you receive more of it, and it kind of comes and builds upon itself. But the opposite is true. That the less grace we receive, the less grace you want to give. Yeah. So I guess I'll ask this to you, Joe, first, and just to kind of figure out our patterns. Do you feel like as a child you received much grace?
No.
Is that an easy question?
Yes.
So you made a mistake as a child. There was no do better next time. It was just you're in trouble and that's it. And that defines you.
Yeah, I laugh about it because it did take me a while to say that there was a correlation between the two. I didn't realize that right away. I didn't understand that that's part of what was happening. But yeah, as a child, there was zero grace. There was no grace. And I would say that probably some adults in my life would say, no, I extended
There's moments
grace.
of grace.
Right.
No. Yeah.
And I'm sure that there were, but that was not the overarching feeling and results. The memories that I have and the things that I walk through, there was not a lot of, that's okay. And honestly, even when we look back over the beginning of our marriage, I wasn't a big risk taker either, which is why I didn't want the curling iron on. But I didn't take a lot of risks because I was so afraid of failure. I was so afraid that there would be no grace. And that took me a long time to understand that we actually can take risks and we actually can fall short, and that's okay.
So I think we look at that situation and we kind of go, okay, you didn't want to give as much grace. Now, I grew up feeling grace and I feel like I'd received it. Maybe not. I don't know if I felt like I had as much need for it. It's like kind of the opposite end. Like, why do I need grace?
Especially when I look at Joe.
No, but I did. But I think in the pattern of our marriage, it definitely, I think in terms of why would I not show grace to you? And I would go, I think because I didn't feel like I was getting any from you. Like you were on my case about things that I did wrong. So I'm like, okay, why am I going to let you off the hook on something? If there's something on you that you're doing that's bugging me. So I think it got us into that pattern where I was kind of going, well, if I haven't had that same level of grace, I'm not going to extend it back. So I think for me, I didn't realize that I was holding back some of that grace for you because of that. Because I feel like, this isn't fair.
It's a crazy catch-22, isn't it? And almost gets you into the arena of keeping score. Like, well, he didn't let me off the hook on that, so man, I'm not, or vice versa. And it did begin. It's a terrible. I'm just saying, it's a terrible place to be when you're walking around on eggshells. And so I know I did that to you, and I put you in a position where you would leave the curling iron on because you were so worked up about not leaving it on. You know, I created a level of stress that when God began to point that out and I began to realize that, I remember coming to you and just over the course of time, this wasn't like a one-time event, but just saying, hey, I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
I don't want to add stress to your life. I don't want that.
Well, maybe this is more of back to the anxiety episode.
Yeah, right.
We're shifting gears. But I think there was a moment too in our marriage where I felt more grace for you. Because obviously we're talking about like risk, right? And like leaving your curling iron on is risky. Leaving your iron on is risky. Leaving your car unlocked is risky. Leaving your house unlocked is risky. But also, it might just be okay that one time.
It might not be.
I didn't get that message from you. No. But I remember recently, and I'll call recently the past 5-10 years, the first time I made a mistake like that, where I'm like, oh, honey, okay, here's what I did wrong. This is actually 5 years ago. I was making my broth, and I keep my broth on really hot, and I keep it on all day long, and I keep it on simmer. And if I'm going to go to the store or leave it, I just put a lid on it, turn the gas off, and know it'll stay warm for an hour while I'm gone. Well, in this situation, I had forgotten to turn the gas off the stove. It was, now granted, this is a nice big 10, like 8-quart pot. So it's not going to go anywhere. The water is going to stay in there with, cooking into broth. And I had run my son out to his class, whatever. And I'm about 30 minutes on the road and going, I didn't turn the gas. I'm pretty sure the gas is on. And I'm like, but I can't go back right now. I have to get him to his class, like right now. You were somewhere else too. You were in the middle of a meeting. So I couldn't even ask you, hey, honey, can you run home and turn it off? I was like, do I even call him and tell him? Because what's the point? Like, I can't do anything. And I was so nervous. And I think maybe it was 2 hours I was gone. I came back and sure enough, the gas was on. But the house was standing. And later on, I remember telling you, hey, honey, I left the gas on the stove while I went to our driver's ed class and came back, and I'm really sorry. And you were like, yeah, I don't know what you said. You're like,
that happens.
That happens. And I was like, but it was nice for me going, I made a mistake. Yes, it could have caused problems, but you know what? It didn't. And like, that felt nice, that grace to say, yes, it could have ended poorly. Tara, you left the curling iron on. You left the house unlocked. That could have ended poorly, but it didn't. So you know what? We're just going to like not worry about it rather than like, if we ever do that again, don't, that feeling of like, oh, I'm in so much trouble. But that was a moment that stood out to me because I was like, I think I left it on. And my old pattern, like you said, like sometimes the old Joe gets in my head and the old Joe's like, the old Joe's not going to be happy with this. But like the new Joe will probably roll with it. Yeah. He'll be okay. So that's my proof that just because it's risky doesn't mean you're automatically going to have danger. It just means it's risky.
As long as you don't have papers on the counter right by the stove.
Yes.
This
is a fire episode now.
No, I think too, thinking back on it, another big turning point for me was when you would say things like that. Oh, I thought I was in so much trouble. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wait a minute. Why would you be in trouble? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's something a kid would say about their parent. I don't want you to ever be in our marriage and feel like you're in trouble.
Well, and to clarify too, right? It's the feeling.
Yeah.
You didn't beat me. You didn't put me in my room. You didn't put me in the corner. You didn't take away my wallet or something and like punish me. You didn't literally punish me. You didn't hurt me in a way. You just let it know that you were really bothered and it was a big problem and now you're stressed out and it would make you cranky because like, so it wasn't like even nothing happened. I just didn't like knowing that you were bothered by it, right? It bothers me. It bothers me. It bothers me. I'm like, but then you flip the tables and going, there's stuff that bothers me. Like, and again, I don't necessarily punish you or put you in your room for an hour. I just say, great, this has caused me so much trouble. This has caused me hassle because you forgot to do the thing. And now, so I think that's like where that grace shows up. So for me, we talked about the dishwasher at night, right? Or bring the laundry basket up at night. And like, if the dishwasher doesn't get started, the whole day is ruined, right? Everybody knows this. The women in my life know this, right? Like, you got to keep the train moving or you're going to get off track. So it's like, yep, I'll empty the dishwasher. And then you go, you didn't. It's like, but grace is saying, sounds like you forgot. And we'll move on from here. You didn't burn the house down versus going, well, now you bothered me and I'm going to be bothered all day long and let you know how much you bothered me and how much trouble you caused. When really in the whole scheme of things, it wasn't that much.
At the end of the day, you are worth way more than the house or the, you know, or whatever damage could be done by leaving that on. And so as just as God was processing that with, you know, as walking me through that process, because that also was equipped, or at the same time, we walked through a massive healing process. And so God was doing a lot of work all at the same time. But I think this is what I feel like I realized in those moments, that it wasn't, lack of grace wasn't producing what we wanted in our marriage.
Well, I think you mentioned this line from the song before. We've talked quite a bit about, which you mentioned, the house. Even, let's say, worst case scenario, due to my mistake and my forgetting something, right? Their actual damage caused, to say, yeah, honey, the kitchen has this much damage in it and it's my fault. I need to know in that moment that we're going to be okay. And exactly what you said, honey, you are more important. Even if it was your fault that the kitchen burned down, I still love you. I'm not going to. And I think the line from the song was, you're not the sum of your mistakes. What's the line of that?
Yeah, more by 10th Avenue North. You're worth more than your mistakes.
Yeah, you're worth more than your mistakes. So I think looking at you, Joe, and going, okay, yes, we're not saying that either of us don't make mistakes or don't forget or don't say things wrong or react wrong. It's going, I'm not let that define you, and saying in the end, worst case scenario, I would still love you.
Yes.
And that's grace, I think, in action.
Yeah.
Like, I still love you, because these are just, again, these things that we both are weak in, and we both have our own things that bother us. And like, the things that bother you are not the things that bother me. So we've got all the bases covered.
Yeah. And for me, lack of grace, and even when it shows up in my current life, because it does at times, lack of grace is always a product of not trusting God enough. It really comes down to that for me. So whenever I'm in a position where you and I'm not extending you the kind of grace that I need to, for whatever reason, I need to go back and reevaluate that and say, okay, God, where am I not trusting you completely? The more that I'm able to trust God, because I've seen it in my walk with him, the more that I'm able to trust him, it becomes easier to give grace, because you know God's got it. And even if either one of us make a catastrophic, and in those days, I think too, there wasn't the resources to go around, right? So, I mean, a mistake like that, obviously you have insurance and all those things.
But there was a high level of stress.
Yeah,
right?
There's a high level of stress in saying, hey, I don't want you to suffer as a result of losing your house, you know, that kind of stuff as well. But it didn't justify the behavior. The truth of the matter was, I wasn't trusting God enough, and I was trying to control a situation that I had no business trying to control. And so it caused me to make sure that you understood your behavior, your lack of, your whatever, your mistake is going to cause problems for us. And I don't want these problems for us.
And we talked about, John 15 and abiding in the vine. So for me, it's like this idea that we can only love from what we've been loved. We only can extend grace to the level that we have received the grace. So for me, my challenge has been that element of, I need grace too. Again, when I realized, I think somewhere along the line, little by little, God revealed to me, how about this, Tara? How about this? Do you need grace for that? Or did you handle that all perfectly fine? I'm like, and at the time when you feel that sense of remorse that you handled something wrong, you are just, putting yourself prostrate at the feet of God or the feet of whoever, going, please give me grace for this. I really will do better next time. Like you become confronted with your own weakness or your own sin and go, just please, just a little bit of grace. And to know, first of all, God does hand it out abundantly. And then for me, when I said I was a recipient of grace, and okay, these are areas that I'm sure Joe is still frustrated with me, and he has to have patience with me for the way that I am and the way I do things. And he's probably like, That allowed me to start giving you grace and realize, okay, I was holding you to a standard and looking at it so critically that was much more fun too, if you were in the carnal mind, to offer criticism than offer grace. Criticism just comes so easily. It's like, you don't have to even think about it. It just happens.
It is weird, isn't it?
But if you let that criticism, or here's what that, and just does that. And again, I know how it feels to constantly be criticized and going,
did I constantly criticize?
No, but that feeling of like,
Right.
It's the iron. It's this now. And now it's, like I can't go anywhere without me starting a fire. That feeling, right? Of like, I'm going to mess up versus that feeling of
it's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay. And if you made a mess, we're going to clean it up together.
And it goes back to, so what's the worst case scenario if the curling iron is left on? And my problem was because of, no excuse, just because of the trauma that I walked through, I saw a lot of worst case scenarios, right? I saw my worst fears become reality when I'm moving from foster home to foster home and sustaining, experiencing the kind of abuse that I experienced. So I think my brain would go to this idea of what's the worst case scenario. But even if that were true, the worst case scenario, how much do I want you to suffer as a result of that? And I think as that question began to really penetrate my heart, I felt like God was asking me that, honestly, like, how much does Tara deserve to suffer for leaving the curling iron on? Right. Same with the kids, right? How much do they deserve to suffer? You should have known better than to
put your bike here. You did that wrong, or you did that wrong, right?
And when I began to ask the question in that way, I start going, wait a minute, how much do I want to suffer for my mistakes? How much do I want... I should. The Bible tells me I should suffer horrifically for my mistakes. But we have this incredible example.
And that's where, for me, some of that fear/anxiety came in, because I thought, okay, Joe's biggest fear in life is the house burning down, right? He just knows this is something that could happen. He's fearful of it. And all this, and it's going to be my fault. Like, that's a fear now. If the house would burn down, it wouldn't be okay, right? Like, it wouldn't be okay. That would be the worst case scenario. And so that's kind of the dynamic we found ourselves in. Like, okay, now it's like, I got to unplug everything in the house so that Joe's not, but again, back to, I don't want it to be my fault if it happens. If something happens at the house, I don't want it to be my fault that I forgot to fill in the blank. And now, living in grace, we're not worried about if something happens in the house. We're not worried about whose fault was it? And
again, that comes out of the healing process, right? I've said it on a podcast before, but I'll say it here because there's probably someone listening right now that goes, man, that's a really fear that's really drove my life. And it did. My only friend in third grade died in a fire. And that really hit me. And I saw things like that throughout my life. And so I didn't want you or the kids or myself to experience that. But in healing, and as healing came forward, I began to be able to see around that, to go, okay, wait, if I'm trusting God, then I should be able to let this go.
Well, isn't it funny though? And this is how we are in our human strength, in your effort to protect me, right?
Right.
I don't want anything bad to happen to Tara.
I don't want her to suffer.
But meanwhile, I'm suffering.
I'm
so I'm
making her
like,
suffer.
I'm worried that Joe's worried that if I do this wrong, constant worry. But I feel like the grace is so much more abundant now.
Yeah, lack of grace steals joy, right? It really steals from our ability to have full joy. And when I began to see that, I mean, that sums it up into a little bit of a nutshell. But as I began to see that, I didn't want that. So that I had to figure out, okay, how do we, and we did it together, you and me, how do we get out of the rut we're in? How do we not, the trajectory that we've been on, we have to change somehow. We cannot keep going down this road. And it wasn't like horrible. It just was at a place where it was
losing out.
Right? We were losing out. And so we kind of went down that road and we began to really ask God, and how do we restore this? And it was amazing the way that God did that. But it really was all about going, hey, what does grace really look like?
Well, and for my end of things, I think we both had slightly different journeys, becoming ungraceful, and different journeys becoming graceful, right? But the end, they all kind of merged together. For me, that part of that grace was learning to accept for where you are even. So in my annoyance at you, that I couldn't leave a room without you saying, is the curling iron unplugged? Is your iron unplugged? Is the door? In my annoyance with that, and kind of want to go, I don't want to offer him grace because now this is bothering me. Learning to accept some of that first and say, you know what? He struggles here. That when you were able to say, honey, I'm actually working through this, and this fear that I have about losing things and this fear I have for people getting hurt, this is a weakness of mine. Like, this is something I'm struggling with. And it was like when I was able to say, this is where he's at, right? Instead of saying this is where I want him to be, I want him to be more chill. Going first, accepting him where he's at and saying, hey, I understand he struggles here. This is going to be hard for him. This over here is going to be hard for him too. Not saying let's just stay there and it's okay. But like for me, I think you did the same to me. Tara, I know remembering certain things is hard for you. You're often in a hurry and you forget something. I understand that's how you are. No, I hope you become more diligent in some areas. I hope I want better for you, but also saying, if you struggle with that, I will be with you and not look down on you for it.
And how do I help, right?
Right.
So instead of being critical,
right,
ungrace-filled, right, I began to ask those types of questions, and you began to ask it. And here's where I really noticed the change start to happen. I would get agitated, exactly what you just said. I would get agitated about something, and I would respond in a non-graceful way. And then you would give me all this grace. And it would, I mean, it's so funny how it works, but it would make me feel guilty. Like, oh, what did I just do? What am I doing? And to kind of really take a hard look at that and say, that's not how I want to be.
But not responding in that critical thing. So I think I'll use the one line that we've talked about that you use at work, which is how you gently remind me of things without being critical and full of grace. So instead of like, for me, being critical and full of like, is like, is your current iron on?
Yeah.
Hey, but you better turn it off because blah, 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 blah. Is there, and like anxiety filled conversation where it's like, did you, and we have to, or else it's like, hey babe, thanks for turning the gas off before you leave. I'm like, I got it, babe.
It's so funny how.
So it's like, I know you're going to do it, but I'm going to remind you gently. Thanks for making sure that there's no paper by the stove when you're cooking. Hey babe, thanks for locking the door before you leave. Like, this is important to me, but I'm not going to ask you as if I think you're not going to do it. I know you'll do it. And so that's been a nice transition.
I appreciate that. I didn't even realize I was doing it. I do know this. It gives me more peace when I say,
you can say it,
because I put it on your mind without having to second guess you or ask. And I didn't even realize I was doing it with my team. But a lot of what I'll do with my team is if there's something really important that has to get done and someone else is in charge of it, I don't want to go up to them and say, hey, did you do this?
Right,
are you going to do it? I don't want to do that. So I'll just simply say, but there's a possibility it could get overlooked because there's a lot of moving pieces at the things that are doing. I may go up and just say, hey, thanks for taking care of that. I really appreciate that. But I didn't even realize it.
You were doing it.
Yeah.
Your coworkers are like, this is what he says to us all the time. Does he say this to you in your marriage? I'm like, 100%. But it's that way of being, instead of overly controlling or fearful or, again, like scary feeling, right? What did you do? Did you do it?
Well, I had a team member say it actually is extremely helpful.
Yeah.
And so they really appreciate it because maybe out of 10 times, they had it. It wasn't a big deal. But maybe there was that one time where something had gotten forgotten.
Right.
And as soon as I said, hey, thanks for taking care of that, they're like,
and you're getting a little thank you in. So like for me, same thing. And then hey, babe, thanks for getting those dishes put away when you're done. Hey, thanks for clearing the table I really appreciate that we took the garbage out. I really appreciate you doing that.
You usually don't use past tense. I really appreciate the way you take the garbage out.
But that's the idea, is like, I'm giving you benefit of the doubt. You're going to do it. I'm thinking ahead of time, but I'm not acting as if you're the enemy.
It has been it's been a game changer for our marriage. Absolutely. Because there are times when you would ask me to empty the dishwasher, but you did it in a way that I remembered I didn't do it the last time. So I better, you know what I mean? There was something attached to it, whether you were meaning to or not.
Like, it's not going to get done.
Right. But when you say, I really appreciate you emptying the dishwasher. Thank you. Yeah. That changes everything, and it makes me want to go do it. So I really appreciate that.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you emptying the dishwasher. I'm just going to put that in every love note.
Is it empty now?
I already have. Well, I think the other issue with grace for me is I grew in grace for you is, accepting for where you are, not going from the criticalness, but also this idea of like the standards we held, but for selective grace, because you want to think to yourself, like, I'm just bothered about the issue. And a lot of times I'm like, I don't think it's the issue. I think I'm trying to I'm upset with Joe for some reason, even though it doesn't matter. So even let's say there's times where I've said, oh, Joe left out his thing on the counter and kind of thing. But then I noticed if it was my son who left the thing out on the counter, same dish, same time of day, I'd be like, oh, he must have had a busy day doing his thing. I'll clean up his dish for him. Teenage boys, how they are. And somehow I found myself giving grace to my sons for the same exact things that you did, which told me that it's not about the dish and it wasn't about the shoes on the floor. Because my sons are actually, you don't have much of a shoe floor issue. But I found myself going, you know what? They're doing a good job in life. They're good kids. Aren't they good kids? They're doing the right thing. Once in a while, they're going to forget to do the shoe. And I would tell them, hey, put your shoes away, please. And I would be so kind to them. And because you're rooting for them, right? But then I found myself with you do the same exact thing. And it's like, well, he should know better. And maybe you should know better since you're an adult and not a teenager. But the idea was, am I have different standards of grace? For this person, it's not acceptable. And for this person, it is.
It's been shared.
And I think I just have a hard time with that.
Throughout sitcoms forever, right? You treat the person you're with like this, and then the phone rings, and you treat them very differently and they might ask you the exact same thing. So I think we have to, or at least you and I had to learn.
But looking at that, you and say the same thing, like, okay, maybe Joe, and again, the times I've asked you to do something, again, we go back to the kitchen because it's, it's where I live. And the idea of going, okay, he didn't do the thing he wanted to do. Like, what do I assume right away? I assume, he doesn't care. I assume he's to this. Instead of assuming maybe he forgot, maybe he was distracted, maybe he got tired. Sometimes you're like, honey, I just didn't want to. Yeah. But it's not necessarily evil.
Or it's I didn't want to in that moment. I thought I'll get to it later. And then, of course, I never got to it later.
And so not attaching nefarious motives when it's not that, And for me, the other thing, is one thing that you've done before is you've left out food. And we're pretty good about, end of the day, putting away packages. And I just like that. But there was a package of something left out and something else. And you occasionally do leave out your packages at night. So in the morning, I put it away and all that. And one morning, I'm like, the package, come on, just put the package away. How long does it take to put the package in the cabinet? You're starting to hear the roll in your head. I'm like, I don't know why he can't put the package back into the pantry. And I'm hearing this critical nature show up in me. And I look at what package it was, whatever box it was. I'm like, I left that out last night. That was me. I left this package out last night, and I think I got too tired and it got too late, and I didn't put it away. So what do I say to myself? Do I give myself the same speech? What kind of person wouldn't put, I think I just didn't get around to it, and I forgot, and I was tired. So I'm like, I'm going to give myself grace in this moment, and I'm going to give myself other people the same grace to say maybe they get tired, and they don't want to. And they just don't feel like it. Because that's how I feel sometimes, right, honey? I just don't feel like it right now. And I have given that to you a lot of times. Honey, why can't you just do this? Right. I just don't feel like it. Tara, this is the better way to do it. This is the faster, safer way to do it. I don't want to. Why? Because I don't want to. But then when you give me that same speech, I just don't want to. I'm like, not acceptable. Not acceptable.
I'm glad that we've grown a lot in that process, and it is a muscle that we had to. In other words, we had to get into the rhythm of really exercising grace. It wasn't something that happened overnight, even though I wanted it to happen overnight. There were times it was like a step forward and a step back, 2 steps forward, a step back. And so it took a long time, but as we began to give each other grace, not only in the everyday aspects of our lives, and again, we still fail at it at times, but that's okay because we're in the rhythm of grace. But as we began to do that, then we were also able to extend grace when we weren't executing the extension of grace perfectly. And that made a huge difference as well. And so I think we have, and some of the things that we did, we've always been big on whenever we say we're sorry, we include what we did. It's not just, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I was short with you. I'm sorry that I said hurtful words, whatever it is. Will you forgive me was another big part of it, but you had to acknowledge, like if I'm apologizing to you, you had to acknowledge that I was sorry. And then I asked you for forgiveness and you had to say yes. And so I think those types of things really helped us kind of grow that grace muscle to say that if I fail at this, Tara's not going to freak out and she's going to forgive me and we're going to be able to continue on the path.
When I think in those times that if you asked me, 20 years ago, and I could kind of list for you, this is areas that don't want to give him any grace here. And sometimes it's not just a matter of saying, we'll give him grace. It's like, okay, why am I hesitant to give him grace, right? And because again, I would say, sometimes with my kids, I'm like, Oh, ton of grace. If you're a little bit late, no big deal. If you can't do this, no big deal. Like I try to give them so much grace, especially as adult children, right? Like it's all good. It's all good. Like I'm not going to get in your case. But like, okay, why is it my husband I am? So that's where you have to do that heart check and go, why do I feel like he's not deserving of grace? And for me, a lot of it was, okay, I've got some hurt I'm hanging on to. That I don't feel like he's acknowledged to bring it back. So I think that healing process you mentioned was like, okay, how have I hurt you that I'm not deserving of your grace? You don't see me as a valid recipient for grace. Or if I give you grace, you're going to just take it for granted, so to speak, and just not even care anymore, saying, oh, it doesn't even matter what I do. Tara, just let everything go and never, ever. So I think to go, why am I not wanting to give him grace? And I think there's a few different answers. So if you find yourself in a place where you're like, man, it's just not flowing and that door is like closed, it can't even open. You got to go, okay, there's something there. There's a hurt, there's a resentment. Again, your relationship with God and going, there's something blocked going upward, vertically speaking, that it's not flowing, right? It's not flowing from God to you out. So it's usually not just a matter of just give grace. It's like, why isn't it flowing? It should be flowing in our lives. And if it's not, there's a reason.
And, in a 30-minute, 40-minute podcast, you can say, it sounds like we figured it out really fast and we were able to turn the corner really fast. But what we're talking through right now is probably more than a decade of work. And then obviously throughout our entire marriage, you're always working at things. And so we're still a work in progress or process. And there's a lot left to do, but the changes that have been so beneficial in our marriage didn't come overnight. There was years and years of coming back and reworking it and I'm sorry, please forgive me, and I forgive you, and I did it again. And
that muscle.
Yes.
And I think sometimes it's a little bit, maybe your first act of grace will be a small act of grace just to go, I thought for sure my wife would get really upset about that, and she didn't. Like, there's like, almost everyone can relax versus if everyone's about to block you over the head for any small mistake, you don't have that spirit of peace in your house versus going, we know that it'll be okay.
Here's the other amazing benefit. In the last 10 years that I've began, or 15 or whatever it's been, that I began to growing in that grace. And again, I'm nowhere where I need to be. As I've become more of a graceful person, I have become a whole lot more of a peaceful person. And so it's benefited me on so many levels. And then plus it benefits me because our relationship
and we
good.
both are eager to give grace though too. So you say grace is something, you've done something wrong, whether it's an accident or an intentional slight or something that feels hurtful. I think knowing that there's still some grace to like squeak, it's like this grease, it's like a grease, just kind of makes things smoother. When you knew I had more grace, we are both more easier to apologize.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I know you're really going to get on my case hard for a mistake, I'm not going to come out and tell you what I did wrong. 15 years ago, I'd never have told you that I left the stove on. I would just say, he'll never know, right? Because it's just better that way. And then when there's grace, I'm like, I can tell him because I know that he'll say, I'm sorry, honey. And he'll say, I forgive you.
It's funny too, because I think probably in all relationships, we didn't struggle in grace in all areas. Like there were some areas that we were very easy.
It seems like it's just
grace.
fire, apparently.
Well, no, but I'm saying like, but the problem with that is I could tend to focus on that and say, what do you mean? I'm very full of grace. I'm just fine.
Well, I'm noticing the parts that you're not.
Right. And this area over here, I'm like terrible in it.
There were many areas that you were very, very like chill in many areas, but I didn't notice those as much. I noticed the areas where you were not chill.
And I never got complimented for those areas. I'm just kidding.
I don't care about that. So it is true that so much grace brings so much more peace to our marriage, that there's that slack saying, if I have a bad day and I make a mistake, it's okay. Even like a mistake like just, I spoke too harshly to you. All right, honey, I was really quick to be critical of you here. I shouldn't have said that. We can kind of catch those sins right at the very beginning. You know what I mean? Right at the very beginning. It could be an actual sin issue where, honey, I said that and I was mean, and we just catch it because we know there's grace for it rather than hiding a sin and letting it grow and grow and grow.
What else is really cool is there have been times where I've apologized to you where I didn't feel like I was extending grace right, or vice versa. And we both are like, what do you mean? I felt like you were just fine. Because we now are giving each other benefit of the doubt, even when you're not extending grace to me perfectly.
Did that bother you that I said this, and I didn't do that? You're like, oh, it's fine. Like, okay, if it did, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I think you like catch those things quickly.
Yes.
Even say, hey, by the way, honey, that really hurt me that you said that. And that really bothered me when you didn't do that. Then it's like, oh, I'm sorry. And I'll forgive you for that. Then I'm more open to share what I've done wrong because I know you'll be grace versus going, I think about how many, houses would have burned down if I was afraid of telling you. It's like,
so maybe that's the exercise this week. If you're open for it, if maybe you would say, you know what, my marriage doesn't have that kind of grace, or I want more grace in my marriage. We were at a place where we had grace in our marriage, but we really wanted more.
Didn't have enough. And I think even to this day, we would say that. It's funny how God grows us, because 5 years from now, we'll look back and be like, oh man, we had some trouble back then, because he's constantly at work. But maybe that's a great exercise, is just to get a little time with your husband or wife, sit down over dinner, or sit down just for a few minutes over coffee or whatever, and say, hey, is there an area of your life that I could extend more grace in? And again, is there a reason that I've not, that it's hard to extend grace to me? Because there could be a reason to going, there's actually, I think, a reason why it's hard for me, because you want it to be easy. You don't want it to be too hard.
There are times now in our marriage, I'll be like, Tara, are you upset with me? Because I can tell you're not, or vice versa, right? Yeah. And sure enough, there usually is something there. There's something that we're kind of working through. So I think communication is so important, but being able to ask those questions and being able to have those conversations are so important. I'd love to hear from you. If we can pray for you too, we'd love to do that. You don't have to share any details you don't feel comfortable sharing. Just hey, we need prayer. Tara, Tara, @BehindOurSmiles.com.
We'll see you next time.